The map you learned in school makes Greenland look as big as Africa, when in reality, Africa is 14 times larger. This isn't just a quirky error, it's the legacy of a 16th century navigation tool designed to help sailors, not students. The Mercator projection quietly stretched Europe and North America while shrinking the global south, baking a power story into every classroom wall. If our vision of the world starts out distorted, what else have we accepted as fact without question? In 1569, Gerardus Mercator unveiled a map that would change the way sailors crossed the world's oceans. His chart wasn't designed for classrooms or textbooks. Instead, it was a tool, carefully crafted for the age of wooden ships and compass needles. Mercator's innovation was simple yet revolutionary. On his projection, any straight line drawn between 2 points followed a constant compass bearing, a property known as the rhumb line. For a mariner in the 16th century, this meant plotting a course from Lisbon to the Caribbean or from London to the Cape of Good Hope without recalculating direction at every turn. The map's title spelled out its intent, a new and more complete representation of the terrestrial globe, properly adapted for use in navigation. To make this possible, Mercator had to solve a technical puzzle. The Earth is a sphere, but sailors needed a flat chart. He stretched the spaces between lines of latitude as he moved away from the equator, ensuring that shapes stayed true locally and that compass bearings could be trusted anywhere on the map. The cost? Countries and continents near the poles ballooned in size, while those closer to the equator shrank. Mercator knew this. His notes and sketches show he was fully aware that preserving angles for navigation would distort area. But for seafarers, accuracy of direction mattered more than the true size of Greenland or Africa. The Mercator projection was a navigator's dream, a map that made the world's oceans legible, even if it meant warping the land that bordered them. At first glance, the Mercator projection looks like a straightforward grid, latitude and longitude forming neat rectangles. But hidden in those lines is a mathematical trick that quietly changes everything you think you know about the world's size. The farther you move from the equator, the more the map stretches the land. At 60 degrees north or south, about the latitude of Anchorage, Alaska, or Oslo, Norway, every kilometer on the map is drawn twice as long as it really is. That means any country at that latitude appears not just twice as tall, but 4 times its actual area. The effect grows stronger as you approach the poles. Near the top of the map, the scale factor skyrockets. Greenland, for example, looks like it could swallow Africa whole, but Africa is actually about 14 times larger. The same illusion happens with Alaska and Mexico. On a Mercator map, Alaska rivals Mexico in size. In reality, Mexico is more than 3 times bigger. These aren't just minor errors. They're baked into the math. The formula behind the projection, K equals 1 over the cosine of latitude, guarantees that every step north or south inflates the land even more. By the time you reach 80 degrees latitude, the map has made every patch of ground look nearly 6 times wider than it should be. What starts as a simple grid quietly rewrites the world's proportions, making some places look enormous and others almost vanish. By the late 1800s, the world of map-making had become a booming business. School districts and publishers needed maps that were cheap to print, easy to hang, and simple to read from the back of a crowded classroom. The Mercator projection, with its neat rectangles and straight lines, fit the bill perfectly. Its shape matched the standard size of textbook pages and classroom blackboards, so there was no wasted space or awkward cropping. This meant publishers could print maps in bulk, stack them in atlases, or roll them out as wall charts without extra cost. Rand McNally, the giant of American map publishing, built its reputation on these practical advantages. Their catalogs from the early 20th century are filled with Mercator wall maps, sold as the true map of the world and bundled in classroom sets. The rectangular layout made production efficient. No blank corners, no complicated cutting, and fewer printing plates to manage. For school boards watching their budgets, the choice was obvious. Procurement records from cities like New York and Chicago show orders for thousands of Mercator maps at a time, each one ready to be tacked above the chalkboard. The economics of mass production locked the Mercator projection into the classroom, turning a navigator's tool into the default picture of the world for generations of students. When a map hangs on a classroom wall, it does more than show where countries are. It quietly shapes how we see the world and who we think matters most. The Mercator projection, with its neat rectangles and familiar grid, puts Europe and North America front and center, large, crisp, and impossible to miss. Meanwhile, continents like Africa and South America are squeezed and diminished, their true scale hidden by the map's design. This isn't just a technical quirk. It's a visual hierarchy that echoes the priorities of the age when these maps became standard. Historian Jerry Broughton puts it plainly: maps are never neutral. They always reflect both practical needs and power relationships. The visual inflation of northern empires wasn't lost on colonial powers. British and French classroom maps from the early 1900s, for example, often showed their overseas territories in bold colors, the Mercator stretch, making them loom even larger. On these maps, the reach of empire seemed limitless, reinforcing the idea that the world's power was concentrated at the top of the map. For generations of students, this became the default mental image, a world where the global north dominates in size and, by implication, in importance. The choices behind these maps weren't just about convenience or cost. They quietly reinforced a worldview, teaching that the countries drawn largest were also the ones that mattered most. Other maps offer a way to see the world with different priorities. The Gaul, Peter's projection, introduced in the 1970s, takes a bold approach. It stretches and compresses the continents so that every country's area on the map matches its area on the globe. Africa and South America regain their true proportions, while Europe and North America shrink to something closer to reality. The shapes may look unfamiliar. Countries near the equator appear tall and thin, while those closer to the poles seem squashed. But the trade-off is accuracy in size. Another popular choice is the Winkle triple projection, adopted by National Geographic for its world maps since 1998. The Winkle triple blends several mathematical techniques to balance area, shape, and distance, reducing the most extreme distortions without perfectly preserving any single property. These alternatives remind us that every map is a set of choices. By changing the projection, we change the story. The map tells about the world. In March 2017, Boston Public Schools became the first major district in the United States to swap out every classroom Mercator map for the Gall-Peters projection. Teachers unrolled new wall maps that showed Africa and South America stretching far larger than most students had ever seen. Students pointed out that Greenland, once a giant near the top of the map, now looked modest, while continents near the equator finally matched their true scale. Some teachers described the moment as a spark. Students started asking why the old map had looked so different and what other facts in their textbooks might be up for debate. Classrooms took the opportunity to compare projections side by side using simple activities like tracing country outlines or overlaying cutouts to visualize the differences. Teachers led discussions on why no flat map can ever be perfect and how each one carries its own set of trade-offs. Digital tools let students drag countries across projections to see how their size changed. These lessons weren't just about geography. They were about questioning sources, understanding perspective, and recognizing that even a classroom map can shape the way we see the world. Greenland appears nearly the size of Africa on the Mercator projection, but Africa is actually about 14 times larger, a direct result of the map's latitude-based stretching, as Gerardus Mercator, designed in 1569 for navigation, not for education. Historical records show that by the 19th century, publishers like Rand McNally adopted Mercator maps for classrooms because rectangular sheets were cheaper to print and hang, embedding this distortion into generations of school children's worldviews. Historians have called attention to how these choices visually amplified Europe and North America while shrinking the global South. Yet no comprehensive record exists of who first mandated Mercator's use in education or how those early decisions were debated. In 2017, Boston Public Schools replaced Mercator maps with the Gall-Peters projection, reflecting a growing awareness that map choices shape understanding. The story of the Mercator map is not just about geography. It is about how technical decisions become cultural defaults, often without question. As official policy shifts continue, one fact remains. The map on the wall is never just a window. It is also a frame,